NFL lines, Teddy, on the hey, look, this is our industry here. Some of these lines are on the move. The what's and the whys and the hows are what's going on. Playoff football in a dome. Let's take a look at it right now. The Colts and the Texans line, Teddy, on the move. We're talking totals here. Opened up at the Westgate at 47, now sitting around 48.5. Some interesting injury information coming through in this football game. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit better blocking because Kelly's going to be back in this football game. Why is this line on the move, Teddy? Let's try to get into some details here.
Well, it looks to me like there's two personnel issues that are in play here. Of course, one, you talked about this Colts center, Ryan Kelly, who did practice in full yesterday. Also, T.Y. Hilton, he re-hurt the ankle against Tennessee, but he is expected to go. The other issue, of course, with Houston, you got issues in the secondary. Jonathan Joseph doesn't look like he is going to be able to go. He's very questionable for this weekend. So one team got a key proponent on the offensive line. The other team lost a key defender. And we're talking about Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck. This will be Watson's playoff debut. That being said, when you look at the QBs making their playoff debuts, Lamar Jackson and Mitch Trubisky, I rank Watson well ahead of those two guys in terms of his capabilities for that first playoff game at home. And, of course, we know what Andrew Luck can do. He's been doing it for his entire career. He's been doing it all season for Indy. So I'm not surprised his total's been bet up. No weather issues to be worried about in Houston on Saturday, and a situation where the injury news has been in favor of points and offense, not the other way around.
Folks, this is That Betting Show, January 3rd. He is Teddy Savransky. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_covers. I'm Donnie Seymour. Give me a follow also if you want to at Right Side VP. Getting back to this game, Teddy, taking a look at because these two teams have played already, obviously division opponents. They played twice this year. When it comes up into your capping innuendos here, do you take into effect, Teddy, what actually happened between these two football teams? First game, 24-21. Second game, 37-34. And also, second part of this question for you, Teddy, it's a playoff game. Did these guys change their stripes in the playoffs? Maybe because Frank Reich, from what we've seen, a very, progressive coach and going for it on fourth down. Does he change his MO in the playoff game and say, you know what, on 4th and 2 from my own 46, maybe I don't go for it here, but I might in the regular season? Talk about some of those topics of, again, playing before a hand 2 times already and also looking forward to this game. Maybe the coaches change up their actual philosophy during the season.
Yeah, Frank Reich is not going to win the award this year. If I had a vote, Frank Reich would absolutely be my NFL Coach of the Year. I don't think it's even that close. I really don't. When you look at the way Indy started with that 1-5 record and what he was able to craft, both offensively and defensively, from a somewhat flawed roster coming into the campaign, Frank Reich is brilliant in that regard, and I've been thoroughly impressed with what he's done with the Indianapolis Colts in terms of getting them prepared for their opponent every single week. We saw what Frank Reich does in the playoffs last year. What does he do? He plays aggressive. We saw that in the first meeting against the Texans, where, as you mentioned, he went for it in a dicey spot in overtime that ended up costing them a win. Frank Reich is not going to dial it down in a playoff game. I would think it'd be more likely for him to dial it up. And as we saw the shootout when these two teams played just a few weeks ago, bettors are certainly expecting that. The market's certainly expecting that in the rematch number 3, or the third meeting of these three, rematch number 2, the third meeting of these two teams. You guys know what I mean, coming up on Saturday night.
4 games this weekend, Teddy, in the NFL. 2 of them are in domes. So the second we're going to take a look at as well is the Saturday night affair between the Dallas Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. This line also on the move, Teddy, but we're seeing some rising and falling. Open up around 41.5, rising up to around 44, now settling back in that 43 range. Obviously, 2 teams that we take a look at, bread and butter here, I think we can agree on, is going to be the running game of both teams. Zeke Elliott on one side, Carson on the other side. 2 quarterbacks that are mobile. One offensive line, to me, the Dallas Cowboys, much better than the Seattle Seahawks. But we're also talking about the NFL here, and it's the playoffs, and we want to ground and pound and play football. But we're also talking about the low 40s. We're not saying, the college football game is at 59.5 or 60. 41, 42, 43, not a lot of points here. Taking a look at some of the interesting information in this one. Over the season, Teddy, if we talk about a 16-game schedule, Seattle giving up 21.7 points per game. The Dallas Cowboys giving up just about the same at 20.3. But over the last 3 games, Both of these teams on defense, Teddy, giving up at least a touchdown more. The Seattle Seahawks over the last 3 games, 27 points per game, and the Dallas Cowboys at 26 points per game. So a little bit of movement late. And I know we can say that Giants game that they played with the Cowboys and then the Arizona Cardinals game that you played with Seattle, not all the way invested in that game, so the scores might have been a little bit higher than what they should have been. But talk about some of this line movement that we're looking in, which I think leads to a lower scoring game with the style of play. But what can we see in this game, Teddy?
Well, it certainly is a type of game where both teams are likely to try to establish the run in that regard. So you can understand from how's this game going to play out, first quarter under, first half under might be worth a look, even with the total getting bet up. Although, as you mentioned, 41.5 all the way up as high as 44. We've seen some buyback on the under down to 43 where the line has settled. But much like in the first game we were just talking about, why is this total moving? Injury news. That's what's going to move totals this stage of the week. Early week total moves, largely injuries and weather. And what you're going to see right here, injuries. For Dallas, an offensive line that wasn't healthy. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, both likely to go this week. Advantage, offense. For Seattle, you don't know if Dwayne Brown or Fluker are going to be able to go, but there aren't many better quarterbacks in the NFL at creating on the fly, creating out of dead plays than Russell Wilson. The market's certainly reflecting that with this modest move towards the over.